We are living in many ways in a socialist society right now. Problem is, as Dr. Martin Luther King reminded us, we have socialism for the very rich, rugged individualism for the poor.
Wait a second.
Let me finish. When Donald Trump gets $800 million in tax breaks and subsidies to build luxury condominiums, that's socialism for the rich. When Walmart, we have to subsidize Walmart's workers who are on Medicaid and food stamps because the wealthiest family in America pays starvation wages. That's socialism for the rich. I believe in democratic socialism for working people, not billionaires. Health care for all, educational opportunity for all.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Bloomberg, would you like to, the question was about socialism.
What a wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, House 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, House 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that.
In the back and forth between some on the right and Bernie Sanders, and now most recently in an attack made by Mike Bloomberg, a billionaire, former Republican, and now Democratic presidential candidate, a strange new myth, if I can call it that. Actually, a straight up distorted narrative, I repeat, a distorted narrative is taking shape. That is that Bernie, by owning 3 homes and by being a millionaire, is a hypocrite or in some way betrays his platform, principles, messaging, branding. I'm not even sure what it betrays because no one ever explains it or follows through. I want to make this 100% clear. 100%. That is all. Complete and utter BS. It's the kind of BS that leads me to 2 main lines of reasoning. Either they don't know what they are talking about and are brainwashed and lack the literacy and the comprehension of the differences, or they are full-blown bad actors. I say this because it's painfully clear what Sanders wants. Even I get a bit tired/bored of his repeated rhetoric. He has been saying the same things for many years, and in some cases, decades. Sanders says he is a democratic socialist, right? What his policies describe is more akin to social democracy. But that doesn't even matter, because any label is immediately distorted and then propagandized by his political opposition. So it becomes more difficult to decide whether to address these distortions. My position is to address where necessary. For example, Sanders wants to increase taxes progressively, typically on income or wealth taxes, different kinds of taxes, right? And guess what? It will affect him as much as anybody. And the things he complains about and the positions he holds would actually more likely result in him paying higher taxes than the poorest proportion of society. So when people bring up his wealth and homes and say he's a hypocrite, it's totally absurd. Totally absurd. Because in those moments, he is not promoting philanthropy or charity giving, which is all good and well. We love charity. We love our charity. But particularly in the moments where Sanders is describing his platform, he is trying to do something far more consequential. He wants everyone to pay their fair share. He never says no one can own more than 1 home, and no proposal on his platform runs counter to that. You have to wonder what the political agenda of these smear merchants is. Sanders never says, look at how many homes or pairs of jeans or fancy cars people at the top have. No, he doesn't. If anything, he'll say, look at how much they have in terms of the money, but he won't stop there. He'll say in relation to the rest of the people. He is saying distribution is wildly unequal. Bernie makes a systemic critique, and insofar as he attacks billionaires or even multimillionaires, it's usually because of the outsized influence they have on elections and ultimately on policy. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here. So when Mike Bloomberg says the best-known socialist in the country owns 3 homes, what he is feeding into is a strange narrative that I can only presume means Bernie betrays some sort of principle or value set that means you're not to have more than 1 home. I really would like to hear what the actual critique is there, or for them to follow through on it. Where exactly does that run counter to any of the Sanders' current positions? My guess, you just won't find it. I mean, it's total BS. And I may be preaching to the choir here, actually. I may just be focusing on something that is obvious to most real people who don't make money or politically ascend based on false narratives. Though this isn't even a false narrative, it's a strange and incomplete and irrational critique that once you follow it through to its logical conclusion, completely falls apart. Lastly, to put this absurdity into perspective, policy affects people, not necessarily owning 3 homes. And Mike Bloomberg has made some horrible suggestions for policy, above and beyond the ones he actually enacted. One of them was to increase co-pays. We're talking about healthcare now. He wanted to increase co-pays.
There's a ways to have more copay on Medicaid, which will do 2 things. 1, the users of the service will pay a little more, but 2, they'll think twice before they use services. So the services they use will be those that are really needed and not stuff that would be nice to have.
But if we don't do things like increasing the age at which you qualify for Social Security, you qualify for Medicare, or co-pays on Medicare and Medicaid so people think twice and only do things that are necessary, we're just not going to be able to afford it.
And his justification for that was to improve the healthcare system and allow more people to get access because people will only pay for the things that they need. Does that make sense? In the current system we see in the US today, effectively, it would reduce access to healthcare by squeezing lower income people out. They're already being squeezed out. I'll let that sink in. And that's my take.